So, guys, are you going to admit that you created this Deepseek AI thing that has, let's be honest, spooked the market?
Nothing to do with me. So it's just China.
It's mad, isn't it?
I don't. Yeah, I don't really understand. It's been a bit of an overreaction. I think the trouble as well when news comes out of China, you could, especially when it comes to figures, you can never trust it.
No. We'll come
So
on to that.
I think they might be over exaggerating, and the market's probably overreacted. The other thing as well is when you've been in the market for a while, you start to understand that the news isn't actually the catalyst. The news is just the excuse for the price action. So if you take a look at what's been happening over the past week or two, Bitcoin's been struggling to get over that sort of 108, 110 level, despite lots and lots of good news. And that's usually a sign that you're going to have some sort of pullback. Markets top when good news can't push it up, and they bottom when bad news can't push it down. Not to say that we're at the absolute tippy top, but in terms of a local top, that was probably a good sign that we're probably due a pullback. We're testing those range highs, and we've got that pullback, and now I think the news is just being blamed for it. Plus a bit of de-risking into FOMC as well. So there's
Yeah,
lots of factors, and I think when there's a news headline that could be blamed for it, I think that's what happened.
100%. I think we've got to look at the figures. The figures just don't make sense. I mean, yeah, you can argue local tops, obvious. Our indicator had a bearish divergence as well as a range high rejection.
Hmm.
But it's the collateral damage of, like, say, Bitcoin miner stocks absolutely plummeted. Obviously, the Nasdaq, the Magnificent Seven, the S&P 500, and de-risking into FOMC, and also it's earnings season. It's really, really how is that such a coincidence that okay, we'll release that on the Friday. It then blasts the number one in the ranks on all the app stores, and then it asks that obvious question: is are investors being overpriced, overcharged? Is Nvidia too expensive? And it just creates that doubt. Personally, I think it'll blow over like everything, right? Because I think what China are going to do is probably try and manipulate the system, and they already have. They've already blocked off accounts to use it. Only I think it's Chinese registered numbers now.
Yeah, Chinese phone numbers. Yeah,
So makes you wonder why they didn't do that in the first place, doesn't it? It's typical kind of just manipulation in a way to try and
yeah,
spook
it is.
markets and have a potential market share, or maybe a little bit of a deal in the China tariff with Donald Trump. Who knows? There's all kinds of unanswered questions there, which is somewhat interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, for those that don't really know much about it, this what's it called? Uh, Deep. What's it called? I've forgotten the
DeepSeek.
name of it now. DeepSeek. It's basically an open AI program similar to Chat GPT and Grok and all the others, except it apparently costs a lot less money to develop than all the others. So the fear in the market was that everything was overpriced in terms of tech stocks and stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
I've
why
just put it on the screen now, and you can already see like AI infrastructure is one of these charts here, and obviously it's blowing up massively. And this is billions, by the way, billions spent. And what's interesting is they've came out and gone, this only costed like 8 million. Eh?
yeah.
No, it never. Don't lie, because that's impossible. Or you've blatantly just copied something and just put your own logo and name on it. Even I think it's Elon Musk, and I'll come on to the article in a minute. He was saying, well, you're probably unlikely to have used, probably a lot more likely to have used more chips along the way, because to have that much power, it's ridiculous. And already we can see here, hype over DeepSeek's feat drove nearly 1 trillion route in the US and European stock market. It's like, what? I mean, Nvidia has lost $589 billion in value already. And then it leaked into the Bitcoin miners, and it's leaked into the cryptocurrency industry as well, because liquidity has been pulled from there. It's like, okay. And it echoes the questions. Is this like a little bit of a black swan? Is it like, the previous vibes of, say, when war breaks out, or when ultimately, like, things go a bit mental, and then we go much higher? And it has that little bit of a feeling to it that this will probably do a V-shaped recovery, and we go higher. You've got to remember, the S&P 500 was at all-time high. So
Mm.
all that situation around it is it's apparent. It's like timing is key here, very very key. So we just need to look at how it is. It's just absolutely crazy,
And
realistically.
as we say, we've got the FOMC tomorrow, so there's going to be decisions on monetary policy, which is going to affect the market as well. So
100%. And earning season, we've got earning season all
mm,
across this week of like certain things. And you can see here, Elon Musk has suggested, that they've probably used a lot more chips, which it kind of makes sense because you don't have that much power and that much output to do the similar sort of thing and also use a minuscule amount. And I'm pretty sure some of the Bitcoin miners have came out and said, well, we've got nearly as much power of you guys to do the exact same thing, which is mad. It's like, okay, cool. Why haven't you done anything about it? Well, there's no need to because these probably talked shite. And let's be honest, probably they have. It's China at the end of the day. And you alluded to it. When they do the financial kind of stuff, we often take what they say with a pinch of salt. We should have took a couple of things with a bit more, you know, COVID, for example. We should have really listened then, but we didn't. Just saying. Things went a bit wrong there. But the reality is here it has made people second guess price predictions or estimates or whatever. It's like it's basically when this feels overvalued, but it might not be. It's an overreaction potentially because we don't know the ins and outs. But as I say, if it has came out that this was just a load of bollocks, the market's just going to V-shape massively. If, however, there's some evidence to state that it is quite cheap to do it, Nvidia is going to have a bit of a problem, I think. Maybe not everything else, but maybe Nvidia especially. But we'll see. We'll see where things go from here. I mean, at the end of the day, we can only go one way and one way only, and that's into earnings season, and that could be a delayed kind of dump, so to speak, if it's wrong or bad or crappy information. But we'll see. But it kind of is a bit odd that they've now restricted users to use it. It's like, why?
yeah, it's all a bit weird, but it'll all resolve itself.
But anyway, shall we talk about other things? Kind of a little bit on the stocky side, I will say, once I get my screen going. Because this bad boy here. So, what's interesting that came out kind of yesterday was this bit of information, which is basically saying that the S&P nosedived, but more than 300 stocks rose, which is interesting. The first time it's actually done that for a long, long time. Given the dates, it's a bit of a worry. The Magnificent Seven, which are the seven big stocks which have been basically pulling the entire S&P 500 up massively, and obviously that got rumbled yesterday. I don't want it to be a tech bubble, but ultimately it kind of is a bit worrisome that, Apple, Google, Meta, Nvidia, Tesla, whatever, are all the big hitters and they all pretty much are heavy in AI. We don't want it to be an AI bubble because that'll create some problems. But it's an interesting observation. So we'll see how things go there in terms of that. But yeah, yesterday was a bit of a rough day, and that has obviously allowed other things to go a bit wrong. Other than that, in terms of news, not a lot is happening. Obviously, FOMC, Deepseek, big things that have spooked the market. In terms of crypto, though, it's been relatively quiet. And the only thing I can draw upon is the fact that Mr. Saylor has decided to get his wallet out yet again, and he's bought even more Bitcoin, which is mad. So I still cannot get my little thick head around how this is happening and why it's happening and why they're going around the volatility route and ultimately buying as much Bitcoin as possible. It just doesn't make much sense in my brain, but I'll go with it until they get liquidated and it creates the biggest bear market we've ever seen and every single model gets ruined. Sorry, stop being bearish, God, but you get the idea, right? So
Could
obviously
happen.
10,000 extra BTC for 1.1 billion. Wow, it's crazy. $105,000 and he's still buying.
Yeah, I don't understand why he keeps buying. You've already got so much.
I know.
Um,
It's getting a bit mad now, isn't it?
yeah, and obviously the average price or average cost basis is just going up and up. And as you said there, obviously a bit tongue in cheek, but it could certainly is a risk that in the next bear market, his average cost could the price could go below his average cost, and who knows what happens then? Could be a bit of an unwind.
Yeah, it does worry me because not all of it is spot. It's most of it's leverage. So it's
Mm,
like, oh god. Um, and let's be honest, I'm going to say it now. The performance of it isn't great. Like if you look at the tracker, it's not great at all. Um, but that's the thing. It's like I understand the point, the game, dollar cost average, buy, don't have cash, whatever. But they're diluting and selling stocks for it.
mm.
And I'll be open and honest, the MicroStrategy product is not a leader. It is not the best. No one will think about using it other than maybe a couple of people, a couple of companies. But they're only known for buying Bitcoin at the minute, especially in our community. So it's interesting. And obviously, you got to remember that Michael Saylor in the past wasn't the biggest fan of Bitcoin. So it makes you wonder. And I don't want it to be the unraveling, but for me, I'll ask you this question. If you were dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, where would you stop? Because I think I wouldn't be putting billions in at $105,000. Yes, I understand long term game, but if there's a risk of liquidation, come on, you can't. Surely not.
Yeah, you realistically and logically, you'd have probably stopped before the break of all-time highs of the previous cycle. I think that would have made sense.
And that's the thing. It feels like it's getting heavier now, higher we're up.
Mm,
Building that dollar cost average should go up versus buying in the bearish markets. And there was times and periods where you could have bought a lot more or a lot more Bitcoin, a lot lower on. I'm going to get the actual sheet up because it's going to do my head in. So we can annotate it and I can showcase what's happening. This is the Michael Saylor portfolio tracker. Now, it's a lot of green dots, I understand, but there's a lot of green dots in that top right hand corner. Now, overall, up 60%, give or take 59.34%, which people will be like, oh, that's a bit meh, you know? And I understand it. Like, again, the long term game, but it's just a bit, I'd rather not. Like, up here, it seems a bit mental, and I understand why. But yeah, you can see it. It's like there's a lot of buys that were very, very sparse around here. Let's be honest. Look at like July 2022, September, October time 2022, January. Not a lot here when the
mm.
price is at its lowest. But when it's at its highest, it's absolutely peppered, absolutely battered. Even up here, peppered with it. So it makes you wonder: is he getting a bit emotional about it? And you can see here the premiums and stuff like that. So, the dollar cost average price is 64,000, which is like whoa, crazy. So yeah, I just have a little bit of a doubt in my brain in terms of how that could be a problem in the long term future because let's be honest, $64,000 cost average is not the best in the world.
Yeah, I'm also not sure how much I like, one entity buying up so much.
Yeah, nearly 500,000 Bitcoin.
Mm.
It's a lot.
That is a hell of a
It,
lot when there's only going to be
it's a lot.
21 million.
That's more than a lot of things. I would love to know in terms of wallet trackers how much that is in terms of like you got to remember Satoshi's wallet has 1 million. That
Mm.
is big share. That is
I
a
think
big,
that's
big,
probably his
big share.
goal, isn't it? To have more than the Satoshi wallet.
Risky, very, very risky. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I just have my doubts about it because decentralization is Bitcoin, and
Mm.
Bitcoin shouldn't be, as you say, one entity, one point of failure. If that gets liquidated, we've got problems. I mean, you can people will argue, well, ETFs, but ETFs is shared out between many different customers, many different facets, many different ETFs as well. They don't have nowhere near as much as that between what? How many of them? 9, 10 of them. So yeah, and I said I've made this point on one of our live streams. Check out our memberships in the link below. But I said, what happens if something happens to Michael Saylor? What does a company do? Is there something written up saying we must continue the journey, we must carry on? Because he's the only one there really being the main driving force of it. Obviously, the board of directors have voted for it, that's fine. But what if, it's a bit of a, yeah, it's a question I don't want to find out
Yeah.
what the answer
Or
could be.
what happens if Yeah, what happens if it does all blow up in his face in the next bear? Whether it's the cause of the next bear market or it happens during the next bear market, and it really throws a spanner in the works. It will all
Agreed.
seem so obvious in hindsight. That's the problem. Just like Luna.
Yeah,
Luna, no one thought that was going to fail, and then in hindsight, you're like, oh, of course, it wasn't going to work. How on earth were we going to get 20%? How on earth was it sustainable to get 20% yield on your stables?
exactly.
But it worked for quite a few months.
And I know people will be like, "Oh, you're so bearish," but the market's full of cycles, and those cycles will not become, they won't just vanish over time because we've got ETFs and Michael Saylor buying because it's all emotion. And this shows it. Like we have periods of redness where it's a bit ugly, and obviously Bitcoin isn't as bad, but can say an ETF or Michael Saylor or big institutional money handle a potential 50 to 60% drawdown? We're talking about potential black swan entering the mix here with obviously Deepseek now. What if there's a bit of panic in the stock market and then liquidity is drawn out of the cryptocurrency market to help, you know, squelching people's underwater position that could be underwater because they've bought too high on Nvidia, for example, right? It's an obvious example, but you know, who's going to rescue Michael Saylor when he's under? Good luck. I
Yeah,
don't think anyone will be. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to look at, but could be worse. Could be a lot worse. I mean, well, I have questions about when does he stop, because it's you're putting yourself at risk. Let's be honest, and I think we don't want to be at risk, realistically. So in terms of the technical analysis, as you can see at the top, our indicator, it's on Traders Lounge if you're interested. We highlighted before, bit of a bearish divergence on the daily time frame, and news then catapulted us down to the range low, which we have sucked back up quite nicely. However, collateral damages, obviously other things around it. Altcoins had a really bad day. Sorry, altcoin lovers. Yes, I do hold altcoins, but whew, it was a rough day. Now, we've talked about this quite a lot, and I'm going to give you three charts that look horrible. AVAX is going to literally fall somewhere. I don't know where. A long, long way down. Just going to say that now. It's going to go down to like 2023 levels, which is a bit ugly, as you can just about see that. Another one is Cardano. If it loses this level, it could absolutely die. Again, I've mentioned this before in previous videos. No offense to Polkadot people, but this is looking a bit precarious. This is the reality of altcoins. These little spikes and then nothing. It's very cyclical. They're very churning. They're very horrible, and they're not good to look at. Even stacks, as much as I love stacks into layer two for Bitcoin, there's no uptick yet at the minute, and it's looking very, very ugly in terms of the position right now. So it's not looking great. That's all I'm going to say. And I think, yeah, we've got to look at the situation. Feels like we're having that old coin capitulation right now where this is shooting higher. Remember, XRP, all that kind of good stuff, has done really good pumps, which has made this a little bit more diluted, so to speak. So if you take away that move, it's probably at 64, 65% right now, which is mad in itself. So yeah, a little bit of fun. I don't know what you make of the charts or if you've got any comments about it, but for me, whew, it's not looking good for altcoin holders or meme coins or runes or Bitcoin miners or anything in between other than Bitcoin right now, which is a bit of a worry.
yeah. Well, as we've said on previous streams, the trouble with altcoins this cycle compared to the previous two is in the previous two cycles we had that long or fairly long outperformance of altcoins against Bitcoin, whereas in this cycle we've had short spells of like a couple of weeks, and then not only do they only outperform for a couple of weeks, but they then go on to make new lows. That's the other problem.
Mhm.
We've not had that out and out alt season this cycle, and there are doubts as to whether we will. The big catalyst for the alt season last cycle was the start of quantitative easing, where money essentially gets printed and flooded into the system. We're still under quantitative tightening, so whether we have to wait for that But then the other problem is the reason for ending quantitative tightening and starting quantitative easing could be that there's a problem in the economy, which might mean that the cycle's over anyway, and it would be too late
Yeah.
for an alt season. So it's yeah, it's very up in there. It's been a very difficult cycle to navigate this cycle compared to the previous two. That's for sure. The previous
Yeah.
two, you literally just bought altcoins, held them for a little while, then you got rewarded. Not the case this time.
No, it's. I think we've
And even
mentioned
the
it.
narratives have been short-lived as well. So
Yeah.
we talked about it before, like the narratives in the last cycle, you went from meme coins to DeFi to layer ones, etc., and they would last, several weeks or months. But this time, it's just been like something's been hot for 2 weeks, and then that's it. It's gone again.
Like
And
now.
I'd say everything's just fully retraced. Like the AI, the AI coins were really hot over the
Mm,
past few weeks, but now they're down like 60, 70% from the highs.
exactly.
So
Like
there's
literally
no,
about to say that. Like
yeah,
the
no
AI
long hold.
narrative popped off. Now we've
Mm.
got Deepseek. It might pop off again, but then it rotated into nothing. It's like, well, where have they gone? Like, what's the next narrative? There isn't one, and that's the thing. And I think that's why people are struggling. There's that real big investor fatigue right now, I think. And I mentioned in my live stream yesterday, I said, if I played this cycle like last cycle, I'd be destroyed because I was so much heavier in altcoins back then. And it worked. It worked very well because I was able to make Bitcoin. Now I can't. It's like, problem. Which is luckily I was heavier in Bitcoin. So being able to buy the lows in Bitcoin and being able to put that profit into it, yeah, I lost a bit on the way with obviously some of my holds, but now I'm like, I'm attached to my Bitcoin. I'm not selling you. I'm going to leave you as you are. You're fine for now until I see something that's going to change. And as you say, if quantitative easing comes in, there's probably a trigger. I know Donald Trump has came out and said he wants lower interest rates, but that's just one part of the story. So that's you can't just go, I want lower interest rates, please. It doesn't just quite. It's not like going into a shop and getting what you request. You got to have certain metrics for that, and whether it changes, whether now the FOMC meeting that's happening very very soon changes things, unlikely, but I doubt it. But we had Christmas cancelled because of FOMC. We might get
Yeah.
something that goes even worse this time. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see where it goes from there. So as I've alluded to it before, I'm a bit attached to my Bitcoin. I'm pretty much Bitcoin cycle heavy, which includes obviously runes. It includes obviously Bitcoin miners. Now, with everything yesterday, the Bitcoin miners had a really bad, as you can see, look at that. 29%, 30% pretty much on TerraWolf. Obviously, Hut as well, Iren. Now, the reason why these ones did so terrible is because they are very much, HBC, essentially AI chip led. So that's what spooked that market huge. It might well be a buying opportunity for everyone's interested. Obviously not financial advice. Obviously, check out our information on our membership or our courses in terms of what the hell Bitcoin miners are. Oh my god, I will be doing a standalone Bitcoin ecosystem course which will cover miners. But again, we talk about how hard this cycle has been to navigate, and Gaz mentioned it beforehand before we went on this recording. Bitcoin miners have been one of the most hardest things ever because they are so cyclical. They are very easily round tripped, and you just kind of get emotional about it. And you don't take profit. I didn't. I mean, I was looking to, but it's one of those. And I think Gazzy's probably got the best analogy for like round tripping because we've all done it. And I don't know, it's hard to kind of quantify because you look at these, you think great gains, but retail have also been buying these, and I know many people are not that interested, but some people are. However, as I say, look at the state of these corrections. I mean, I'm hoping it zips back up above these support levels, but this could be a really interesting time for miners, and it could well be one big shakeout. But yeah, that's the
The
Bitcoin
trouble you've
for you.
got is that they follow Bitcoin on the way up, but then they seem to top out before Bitcoin does.
Yeah.
And then whenever Bitcoin pulls back, they pull back a lot harder.
Hmm.
So I mean, if you take a look at where did they top out in December, like early December, was it? End of
Yeah,
November?
fifth or sixth on Iren, I think. Hut was similar-ish. Yeah, or a bit, well, maybe a week later. Yeah, kind of. Same sort of time frame. It's rough. It is. These are really hard to navigate, and like we've got these in our ISAs, like our tax-free ISA, and it's cyclical as buggery. And we should probably do the opposite, really, put it in our general investing fund because ISAs are quite precious because you only get a limited allocation. If you start losing money, you're buggered, really. So yeah, it's not fun at all. But the reality is here, like look at Nvidia. Nvidia is absolutely nosedived, and it's like you know massive gap. But as I say, next week this might be totally fine. The problem we have is, as I say, it's same with altcoins. With miners, is the same fatigue. We expect the need to do much better than they have. They have done all right. Don't get me wrong, but they top out very aggressive. Like honestly, like as I said, right. Look at TerraWolf, right? Decent run over the course of the year. Did all right. Let's be honest. And some of us have made some good money here, but the end of the day went to $9, and then we ended up yesterday's close
Wow,
nearly at $4 in like literally a
50%.
couple of days.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a 65, 60, 75 days. Obviously, it's different with trading days in the stock market, but a 55% correction. Oh, and then you think to yourself, well, it was really obvious at the time. But then you zoom out and you think to yourself, well, actually, it could go a lot higher. And then you look at it and think, fuck, where can these go? And it's just one of those, isn't it? It's like, you know, I was waiting for like $10 on TerraWolf. I had $10 marked out as my potential. I'm going to sell a decent chunk of that, but didn't
Mm.
even get there. Really disappointing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's
the other problem you've got as well is the share dilution as well.
yeah, it's
So there's
yeah,
more
yeah,
shares on the
dilution.
market than there were in the previous cycle.
You've got to also look at earnings. So I mean, some of these will be making mega money because they're mining Bitcoin at such a low price. But at the end of the day, if it's going to cost them an arm and a leg to do that because Nvidia are overpricing the chips, for example, randomly, it could well be a problem anyway. So yeah, it's very cyclical. I'd be very, very mindful of mining. Certainly, if you're buying too high, if you're getting at the lowest sweep, if you can manage that position, awesome. But don't be dollar cost averaging up because of the hype. But I think if they do genuinely run, I don't think they'll run for long. I think they will run. This might be the bounce. This might be the shakeout, and then there might be one leg up. And then I think for me, that'll be me. I'll be getting out of them because I don't want to waste my ISA allocation. I've already said if I like double my ISA allocation or even maybe triple it potentially, which could be a possibility, I've won because that's like 3 extra years of like ISA allocation I've got for free as profit. But easier said than done, as I say, because you've seen it there, like up the stairs and literally out the window into the basement very, very quickly with these. It's not even like an altcoin. At least these run one way, but you get emotional about it. You're like, oh, go a bit higher, go on. I was looking at like $30 for Hut, and it got to 28, and it just went nope. Now it's at like 19. It's like, oh bollocks!
Yeah.
So annoying. It is annoying, but it is what it is. But the technology of them are good. But obviously, as I say, like something can happen somewhere, and it spooks the entire market. And if you've got AI technology coming out at a much cheaper base cost, it's going to really upset them. 100%. This is why the stock market investing isn't foolproof. The same with Bitcoin now. Same with altcoins. You can't just buy and hope and it goes up. The S&P 500, as we know, it's a really good bet. But what if in the next 4 to 5 years we get the Magnificent Seven not doing as well? That could really affect the market. So
Well, not only that, we've had lost decades as well, haven't we, before, where
yeah, we
the
are.
stock market's barely moved for 10 years.
Yeah, we could be coming up to one of those soon.
Mm.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? No, definitely not fun. Not fun if you're in the financial industry. But you got to remember as well, like we do not know what's going to happen with a potential recession. We are probably due one at some point in the next coming years. We've got to be because we've had so much thrown at us in terms of we've had wars, we've had pandemics, we've had a changed generation of technology. Like, you got to think, when we grew up, we were in that nice little generation where there was no smartphones or anything. We got to live life, and the change of the working relationship of everything has changed massively. And it feels like at certain points we've kicked the can down the road, and we
Not
don't know
massively. Yeah.
if a recession is going to make crypto go higher because of that different alternative, i.e., Bitcoin, right? Gold, for example, has done that in the past, and people will get slaughtered by being in the wrong thing. And we might well find that something does go and break. Like look what happened in Japan in the summer. Something broke there. Oh god, they had an interest rate hike as well actually on Friday, which was the first highest rates I've had for 17 years. That could have been another thing. So there's so many little factors that come out at an interesting time, which is obviously the news just kind of went, I like you as news. I'm going to sell because of you, and it's created that emotion weirdly, but it is the way it is, isn't it? Markets are emotion at the end of the day.